All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a genuinely fascinating breakdown of how Blueshirt Media is using artificial intelligence to solve a literal life-or-death bottleneck in addiction recovery. We're going to see exactly how machine learning is stepping in to support human vulnerability in a way that is just quietly revolutionizing behavioral health.
So I want you to imagine waking up at 2 in the morning. Your body is in full physical withdrawal. You're absolutely terrified, and you realize with this bone-chilling clarity that you need help, like right now. It is a fleeting, fragile moment of pure desperation. So you grab your phone, search for a local treatment center, you dial the number, your heart is just pounding. And then you hit a cold, automated voicemail telling you to call back during normal business hours. The friction of that one voicemail is enough to let all those mental defense mechanisms snap right back into place. By 8 a.m., that momentum is completely dead.
Section 1. The Midnight Crisis.
We really need to establish the stakes here right off the bat, because these treatment centers are fundamentally bleeding opportunities due to a purely logistical choke point. If a person doesn't receive a follow-up call within 24 hours, their chances of entering treatment literally fall off a cliff. The data shows they become 7 times less likely to convert into an admission. 7 times. That isn't just a gradual decline, right? It's a complete free fall. The decision to seek addiction treatment is almost never some calm, calculated plan. It's catalyzed by an acute spike in pain. If an empathetic professional can intercept them in that tiny, narrow window, the probability of admission is actually pretty high. But if they hit a voicemail, that fragile window of willingness completely shatters.
Section 2. The calling gap.
This gap is basically a massive systemic failure, where human bandwidth simply cannot keep up with the demand. The infrastructure is there. The intent to help is certainly there, but that final crucial connection point is broken. Just look at this quote from an admissions director. It brilliantly illustrates the grim reality of perpetual triage. Admissions offices at behavioral health facilities aren't these quiet, library-like environments where people are methodically dialing numbers from a tidy little spreadsheet. No, they are way closer to the emergency room of a major hospital. Staff members are so incredibly overwhelmed handling active physical crises in the lobby, fighting with insurance companies and managing frantic families, that dialing outbound lists becomes practically impossible.
Let's actually break that math down for a second. Reaching only 15% of alumni means that out of every 100 people who graduate from an exhausting, rigorous recovery program, 85 of them just vanish into the ether without a single proactive check-in call from the facility to see how their sobriety is holding up. I mean, that is a heartbreaking statistic.
And honestly, even more shockingly, 70% of leads are left completely hanging. Think about that. These are people actively raising their hands. They desperately want help, they filled out a web form or clicked on an ad, and remember, these facilities spend massive budgets on marketing just to get the phone to ring in the first place. By lacking the operational bandwidth to actually capture those leads, they're wasting a huge portion of that ad spend.
Now you might be thinking, well, why don't they just hire more staff? But as you can see here, you can't just hand a generic checklist to a cheap outsourced call center. A true behavioral health caller requires rigorous, trauma-informed training. They need a clinical shield of empathy and serious crisis de-escalation skills. I mean, they are cold-calling individuals who might be actively intoxicated or super defensive. Finding professionals with that specific level of empathy, paying them a matching wage, only to have them spend 80% of their day just leaving voicemails, it is economically unsustainable. Human scaling is just fundamentally capped here.
Section 3. The AI front door.
So to fix this structural cap, Blueshirt Media engineered this 24/7 system. When a lead comes in at 2 a.m., this system answers instantly, totally bridging the gap between that midnight crisis and the 8 a.m. shift change. And to be clear, we are not talking about those awful legacy press 1 for admissions phone trees. Notice how the chaotic, tangled mess of a caller's despair, whether they're crying, using heavy street slang, or just speaking in totally fragmented sentences, is processed through advanced natural language processing. In mere milliseconds, the AI structures that chaos. It maps the semantic meaning and the emotional tone right to the core of what that caller actually needs.
To maintain the illusion of empathy, the conversational design utilizes something called prosody. This allows the AI to sound basically indistinguishable from a calm, compassionate human being. It knows exactly when to insert appropriate pauses or use active listening cues, like a really soft or "I understand." It's specifically engineered to de-escalate anxiety by validating the caller's decision to reach out in the first place.
And you know what usually gives a bot away? It's that super awkward 2-second delay before it answers. By using edge computing to reduce latency down to milliseconds and incorporating barge-in technology, A panicked caller can literally interrupt the AI mid-sentence. They can just blurt out, "Wait, do you guys take my insurance?" And the AI stops on a dime, processes the interruption in real time, and pivots instantly to answer, exactly like a real counselor would.
Section 4. The 90-day danger zone.
Capturing the lead is huge, but it's really only step one. As we follow the patient past discharge, we enter what is arguably the single most fragile period of recovery. The source data is pretty sobering here. It shows that 40% of alumni, so 4 out of 10 people who fought through detox and earned their sobriety, experience active relapse thoughts within the first 90 days of leaving the facility.
Now, the thoughts themselves aren't the failure, actually. They're an expected neurological response. Think about it. Patients leave the heavily fortified, safe bubble of inpatient care, and they're immediately hit with post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which actively alters their brain chemistry. Suddenly, they walk right back into the exact same traps, the identical financial and family stressors that catalyzed their addiction in the first place. But experiencing those completely expected thoughts in total isolation, that is what's catastrophic.
To prevent these alumni from slipping through the cracks the second they hit a trigger, the AI functions as an automated outbound engine. Instead of waiting for the patient to call or reactionary model, the AI systematically executes structured 30, 60, and 90-day check-in campaigns. It persistently dials and utilizes that same trauma-informed conversational design to really listen, probe for signs of depression or cravings, and actually hear how the patient is doing. Section 5. Scaling Human Empathy.
Recovery is fundamentally built on connection. So here's the big question. How does outsourcing calls to an algorithm actually increase human connection without making the patient feel like just another number on a spreadsheet? Well, in a human-only system, 85% of alumni get zero outreach. But by deploying AI, that baseline of connection instantly scales to 100%. The AI acts as an advanced early warning radar. It clears the board of the 80% of routine maintenance check-ins for patients who are doing great. This means human counselors aren't burning their day leaving voicemails. Instead, they can take their limited, highly valuable empathy and target it directly at the 20% of individuals who are in acute danger, exactly where the smoke alarm is actively going off.
So here is how this plays out operationally, and it is fully HIPAA-compliant, by the way. The moment the AI detects a relapse trigger, say a caller casually mentions, "Yeah, I drank yesterday," it completely bypasses slow emails. Instead, an API instantly triggers a high-priority, flashing alert right on the on-call clinician's dashboard. Then it pushes an encrypted summary and the raw transcript directly into the electronic health record. So when the human clinician dials that patient back, literally 3 minutes later, they are fully armed with context before they even say hello. There's no making the patient repeat their trauma. Just immediate targeted clinical empathy. And as the CEO validates, the prevailing narrative out there that enterprise AI is just about automating mundane tasks to shrink the payroll is completely flipped on its head here. This is absolutely not about replacing the clinician to save a quick buck. It's the ultimate amplification of human resources. You are mathematically scaling a facility's ability to deploy human compassion. You're letting the machines handle the grueling logistics so the humans can focus entirely on the actual healing.
I'll leave you with this final thought to take away from our explainer today. We've just seen how artificial intelligence has reached a point where it can flawlessly and empathetically manage a life-or-death crisis intervention in addiction recovery. So ask yourself, what other deeply intimate human fields we firmly assumed were simply too sensitive, too complex for technology, are standing right on the precipice of being completely revolutionized next? Keep questioning the mechanics of the world around you, and thanks so much for joining me today.